Just returned back from LA, and I was there to receive this training called Guide, Flow and Guide training. And it's this experience that Danny and I actually a couple years ago had been through called the Live Experience. And in that Live Experience, we talked about our story, we talked about pain, we talked about all these things that God has given to us as gifts, and how God wants to use these things in our life to further, obviously, His mission, but also give us purpose. And here's the big thing about so many of us, if not all of us. We're all looking for significance, meaning, purpose. We're trying to find value in what we do and all these things. And so this is the reason why I went down to receive training, because I feel like the training that I've received will help people to have things unlocked in their hearts to help them find their destiny. Because at the end of the day, that's what we want. We want people to find their destiny, their purpose. And that's always found in Jesus. Now, in saying this, though, in the training, which was really good, there was this line, this word, actually, this phrase. It's two words, I'd say, that put into one, that really stuck out to me. And I was sick this whole week. I'd wake up in the morning, I'd feel great. It's a little stuffy. I sound stuffy right now, right? But I feel great, and then lunchtime would hit, and I would just start to crash. It'd be like 9 to 5, our training, and I'd just start to crash. So I can feel it going, and then our team of people that were being trained up with me from all over the world, they're like, Teddy, you doing okay? They look at me, I'm like, I'm okay. But it feels like I just got punched in the face, right? And so I was really trying hard to focus and just be engaged and make this experience so rich for myself. But in that time, we watched this one video of a man named Skye Jethani. Have you guys ever heard of Skye Jethani? So Skye Jethani, he's a very intelligent, philosophical man, Christian leader, speaker, writer. And I want to give you guys this little, his name so that you guys can look him up. He has a Q Talk. It's called Q17, 2017, Q Talk, led by Skye Jethani. His talk is called Moving from Generous, no, let me find it because I don't want to. I'm not following my notes at all, so. It's called From Vocational Narcissism to Vocational Generosity. Vocational narcissism to vocational generosity. I want you to go and take a listen to this chat or this talk that he gives. Really, really great. He talks about his life and who he is. He talks about his name, actually, and why that name was so important to him. He's half Indian and half white, and his name is Skye Jethani. He's just trying to figure out where his name came from. And the way he tells the story is super beautiful, super great. But that triggered something in me. It just resonated with me, this whole idea of vocational narcissism. And so this talk today, I've called it the 5 Fs, okay, or the 5 F words. And there's 5 F words that I want us to focus on. Yeah, F words. We can say that in church, right? Well, I can. You can't because, yeah, no. But the 5 F words of my sermon today, and there's 5 words that I want to focus on. First is fear. Second, failure. Fear, faith, failure, forward, and then for others. And these are the 5 F words that I came up with. I know that you guys are hoping for another F word. And maybe one of that F word you're thinking about might be somewhere in the story of all this, but it's important for us to talk about these things. And so coming from the place of discussing and kind of unpacking what vocational narcissism is and how that's really stunted our generation and the millennials and the Xers or whatever, I feel like there's this unhealthiness to vocational pursuit that's really arrested so many people. It stopped us from living in the present. And so I want to kind of unpack that. William Barclay said, there are 2 great days in our lives, the day we are born and the day we discover why. The day that we are discovering why for so many of us has yet to be discovered. I feel like so many of us are striving and we're like chasing after the pursuit of the why. I mean, if you can remember when you were a child, I'm sure some of us have had dreams. And you said, I want to be a fireman, I want to be a police officer, I want to be a mom, a dad, I want to be, whatever it might be, these kind of ambitions and desires that you may have had. were very real to you as a child. And then somewhere along the line, maybe you as a child or as you start to grow up, people start to say those dreams are unrealistic. You have to be more practical now. You have to be way more safe, I guess, and you want to be stable and secure if you want to pursue these dreams. So wherever you are on this spectrum of trying to pursue your why, let me just say this. To find your why is a noble pursuit. To find your why is a noble pursuit. But let me also say, you may not find it where you're looking for it. Like Jesus said last week, or the angel said, why are you looking for the living among the dead, right? Where the dead is supposed to be. And I think it's the same thing for us. For some of us, we're just looking in the wrong places to find our why. There's a song with a lyric that says, how can we know what it feels like for a dream to come true if you've never dreamed? For some of us here, we've just never given ourselves the opportunity to dream. And because you haven't given yourself that opportunity, you never imagined what your life could look like if you were to ever have a dream and that dream came true. In Matthew chapter 14, verse 22 to 32, there's a really cool interaction. And I remember I was going in my archives, as Andrew would say it, my archives, and I preached a sermon, I think 3 or 4 years ago. And so many of us who have grown in the Christian tradition or in church, you may be very familiar with this text. But I feel like there's some very important things that we need to unpack here for our time and for right now. And for so many of you, as I've been engaging with you and talking with you, I feel like there are a lot of questions that the scripture is going to ask you. I think this text and this story is going to exegete your heart. Let it do that. But I feel like some beautiful gems and treasures will be unlocked in this. So I pray that this would not be just an educational, academic experience. Amen? And it's not. I don't think it's just meant to be that. There's something more. So as soon as the meal was finished, this is the feeding of the 5,000, that meal, he insisted that the disciples get in the boat and go on ahead to the other side while he dismissed the people. With the crowd dispersed, he climbed the mountain so he could be by himself and pray. He stayed there alone late into the night. Meanwhile, the boat was far out to sea when the wind came up against them, and they were battered by the waves. By the way, this is a Message paraphrase. At about 4 o'clock in the morning, Jesus came toward them walking on the water. They were scared out of their wits. A ghost, they said, crying out in terror. But Jesus was quick to comfort them. Courage, it's me, don't be afraid. Peter, suddenly bold, said, Master, if it's really you, call me to come to you on the water. Jesus said, come ahead. Coming out of the boat, Peter walked on the water to Jesus, but when he looked down at the waves churning beneath his feet, he lost his nerve and started to sink. He cried, Master, save me. Jesus didn't hesitate. He reached out and grabbed his hand. Then he said, faint heart, what got into you? The two of them climbed into the boat and the wind died down. The disciples in the boat, having watched the whole thing, worshiped Jesus, saying, this is it. You are God's son for sure. On return, they beached the boat at Gennesaret. When the people got wind that he was back, they sent out the word throughout the neighborhood and rounded up all the sick who asked for permission to touch the edge of his coat, and whoever touched him was healed. The first word I want to focus on is the word, what is that word? It's fear. The reality is, for so many of us here, we feel like we need to get rid of fear. I think there's a certain level of fear that we need to carry, and that fear, first and foremost, starts with having a fear of the Lord. We understand that there's someone in our story that is much bigger than us, much greater, much more loving, much more passionate about your life than even yourself. There's a fear of the Lord that needs to posture us rightly before God. Now, what we find in this situation, in this story, is Peter and his disciple friends get into a boat one afternoon to cross the Sea of Galilee because Jesus had asked them to do that. Now, these people were just obeying Jesus. They were doing something also that they had always already done. They were used to getting in a boat and riding this boat. They were accustomed to this. You see, a lot of times, what we don't understand about obedience is we think obedience is always something that you don't want to do. But could it be that even in your very daily acts, like getting into the boat, like the fishermen had always done, could it be that that's also the most obedient act? And that in that obedient act, that Jesus can meet you? The vocational narcissism and where that messes us up is we think that what we have is never good enough and we want what other people have. Because it's just about you and the better life that you feel like you're called to live. But sometimes the everyday act of getting into your common boat that you're consistently used to getting into might be the greatest obedient act that God is asking you to do right now. You hear what I'm saying? Okay, this is going somewhere. Yes? Okay. So on this particular day, though, a storm blew in. The waves are crashing and tormenting the boat. And so at this point, they're thinking, man, we're not even just thinking about the other side. We're actually just thinking about surviving. We're just thinking about surviving. It is at this point when the boat is being rattled by the storm and the waves, when they see a ghost. This is actually such a powerful statement. Because who else could it be that's standing on the water? But they perceived it to be a ghost. This made me think actually about how we follow Jesus. I wonder if we see Jesus as Jesus, or sometimes we see him as a ghost. Meaning, he's actually not what you think. So many of us don't recognize Jesus. We don't live in this pursuit of Jesus. We don't love Jesus. You're not intimate with Jesus. So when he does appear on the water or in extraordinary situations, you cry out, it's a ghost. Why? Because maybe you're not that familiar. And here's the thing about the disciples. They witnessed the power of Jesus. They walked with Jesus. And even though they did that, even them who were in close physical proximity to him still cried out, it's a ghost. Now, how much more likely would it be for us, who may not be as physically present with Jesus, to go, that's a ghost? You see, so many of us are looking for answers, and God's giving you the answers and the highlights, and he's saying, I'm right here, and you're saying, ghost. Ghost. And this is my challenge. You want to find your call, your vocation. Get close to Jesus. Know who he is, what he sounds like, what he feels like, what it feels like to have his arms wrapped around you, his peace to fill you, his love to consume you before you start chasing other things. It starts with understanding that Jesus is not a ghost. He's not the ghost. But he's the God on the water that's beckoning you. So they cried out in fear, it's a ghost. It's 3 o'clock in the morning. And this is where this beautiful interaction then happens with Peter. The ghost, or Jesus says, courage, take courage, it's me. It's me. I find that when Jesus appears to me in my chaotic moments, he comes to really edify my soul. He doesn't always give me the answers that I want, like do this and do that, but he does give me a command, which is things like take courage, have faith, hang in there. For me, that is sometimes the best answer rather than, okay, now turn left here. Now turn right here. But there's a beautiful element where even in our fear, he asks us to take courage. When you don't have fear, why would you need courage? But the reality is, in your fear, in their fear, he says, take courage. Now, the rest of the 11, besides Peter, they're a little bit confused. They don't know what's happening. But Peter, and if you know anything about Peter's life, very emotional. He'll get hot in a second. I think there's some Korean in him, right? Just boom, hot, angry. Just get there in a second. And I feel like there's a little bit where, so he's just like, you know what? Jesus, if that's you, then call me on the water. I love that response. If that's you, because I can't see. If that's you, I'll respond to your call. What I love about Peter is two things. One, he says, if that's you, call me out. Two, Jesus calls him out. And Peter, he responds. You see, so many of us, when you say, Jesus, call me out, and he says, okay, I'm calling you out, you say, do it again. Okay, I'm calling you out. Okay, now a third time through another person, and maybe a prophetic person this time. And then this time when you do it, say my name. And like you give God the parameters in which he calls you out, and what he's trying to do is just trying to give you an opportunity to experience faith. Experience faith. Not logic, not analysis, but faith. And that faith with Peter is, I'll respond when you call me. And I love that. There's an accountability there. He stands up to the truth and the reality that Jesus could actually call him out. So Jesus says, okay, come to me. Peter gets ready. He holds the side of the boat, and he steps over. And this is now the second word, faith. You see, for me, what I find is when we're in moments of fearfulness is where I feel like we take our greatest steps of faith. And when you take your greatest steps of faith, you will have people come alongside you who will say, you're foolish. They'll question your faith for foolishness. And this is where I say to you, just keep your eyes on Jesus and step out of the boat. As people start to challenge you and say that's foolish, maybe there's an element of faith there that they just don't see. They don't understand because your eyes are on Jesus. Their eyes are on your feet leaving the boat. You get what I'm saying? Their eyes aren't on Jesus. And I'm not saying they're bad people. I'm just saying their eyes are on seeing you doing this physical act of stepping out of the boat. And for them, they would say, that's foolishness. And they might have the best intent. But your eyes are on the one who's calling you out. That's called faith. So the question I have for you is, the life that you're living, is it faith or is it foolishness? And as ones who have our eyes on Jesus and he's calling you and you're responding, you know the difference between your faith, what's faith, and what's foolishness. You know the difference. And I think we need to think about that a little bit. Am I living a life of faith or is it just foolishness? Peter says, command me, God, to come to you on the water. And Jesus commands him. Now, I want to go back to this narcissism point. As Peter is about to, and before I'm sorry I'm not as dramatic about this, because before when I preach the sermon, I'm so dramatic about Peter stepping out and that whole experience. Okay, I want to get away from all the dramatization of it this time. Just kind of get to a point. Peter steps out of the boat. As he's about to step out, the people that are in the boat with him, his crew, his friends, they've journeyed with him, are thinking, get back in the boat. Right? Get back in the boat. What are you doing? That's foolishness. Also, when you get out of the boat, this thing that we're in is going to rock. It's going to shake. Get back. You're rocking the boat. Get back in the boat. Okay? So, excuse me. My question to you is this. If you were in that boat and Jesus commanded you to step out, what would you do? What would you do? I mean, the water isn't calm at that point. The waves are still splashing around. Your peer group the people that you value are in the boat, what would you do? This is not, I'm not looking for an answer. It's not an easy question to ask, but I think it's a vital question to ask. So many of us have dreams that God has established in you, but you're so influenced by the boat. Now, the boat represents everything that's comfortable, safe, and it might be the other. It might be the other. It might be the other that God is not calling you to. But we stay here because it's comfortable. We want God to call us 50 times before we step out. Yeah? But we are so comfortable with the boat because we feel like that boat is safer than anything that we have. It's just so safe. But the reality is, or the question is, what makes the boat so safe? Why do you think it's safer in the boat than out there with Jesus? You see, we've convinced ourselves the boat is our God, and that on the water, he on the water, is a ghost. Now, let me ask you, would you put faith in a ghost? Please say no. Please say no. If you're not sure, we'll pray for you. We have prayer in the front. But you wouldn't put faith in a ghost, right? But if it was Jesus, would you put faith in Jesus? You see, it's not that we choose a boat more than Jesus, better than Jesus. We choose a boat over a ghost. I just thought of that right now. Boom. But isn't that the truth? Because I think for those of us who say that we love Jesus and we're committed to him, we'll go wherever Jesus calls us. But because we think Jesus is a ghost, I'm back in the boat. I'm back in the boat. Because here, we can talk about Jesus. We can dream nostalgic memories. Remember when Jesus did this? Remember, just like a minute ago, he just fed 5,000 plus people. Do you guys remember that? Oh, that was so amazing. And we start to theologically discuss Jesus, come up with doctrinal statements about Jesus, have all these great Bible studies about Jesus. And he's like, come to me on the water. We're not done. Once we're done studying about you, we'll get there. But we're here. We're comfortable. We're rationalizing why our boats are so great. But what makes what's happening here safer than actually being on whatever waters it may be with Jesus? I'd rather be with Jesus. But again, what do you believe about Jesus? Maybe he is just a ghost to you. Maybe he is just a fantasy. Maybe he is just a good idea. Maybe he is just a really good teacher, not quite convinced about the God part yet. And then I would say, I do understand then why you wouldn't step out of the boat. N.T. Wright, in one of his commentaries, says this. Let me just read you this paragraph. We are the disciples in the boat. They had seen so much of Jesus' power. They had heard this teaching and prayed his prayer, but now they were stuck. Professional fishermen, they were struggling with their oars, unable to make headway against the wind. We too, in our world, have discovered so much, learned so much, and yet are still without power to do many of the things that really matter. We have invented wonderful machines for making war, but nobody yet has found one that will make peace. We can put a man on the moon, but we can't put food into hungry stomachs. We can listen to the songs the whales sing on the ocean floor, but we can't hear the crying of human souls in the next street. There's an element of your comfortability with your boat that resonates with this paragraph. God has called and commissioned us for so much more, that you would move beyond your fear, live a life of faith, which, and I'm going to skip to my last point, which is therefore called, which is calling you to live for others, and that's the fifth word. is for others. And this is where your vocational narcissism will get scandalized. This job, career, role, dream, whatever that you're looking for is not about you. It's not for you, in fact, but it's for others. It's for others. So at the end of the day, it really does not matter what job you have, folks, but are you living to serve others? That's, at the end of the day, that's what it's about. Now, if you don't want to use the word serve, use something else. But it's really for the other. And that's why Jesus came, for the other. And we were the other. We were the misfits. But Jesus came for that purpose. My challenge for you is this. When will we move from a vocational narcissism to a vocational generosity, as Sky Jitani would talk about, where your life is being truly given away in a healthy way, right? Where your attitude and the posture is that to serve. You see, the resurrection of Jesus Christ and this life that we're called to now live, the abundant life, is not just so that you can accumulate your own wealth and build your own brand and your own kingdom, but it's so that you can be commissioned faithfully to understand that there is fear out there, but you choose to live in faith, and you choose to be where God is calling you to be and beckoning you to be. Amen? And when he is with you and wherever you are, and if he is with you, then that's the best place to be. But your vocational narcissism, this pursuit of finding your worth in just your stuff, your accolades, is the boat that sometimes we are stuck in. What, church, is your boat? One of the beautiful things about this training this week was it's not just like, personally, I'm getting a little tired of conferences. I don't know, but I just, go to conferences, hear these great speakers, get riled up, and you come away with really not that much. Not much except great feelings, and really. But in this training, what was so beautiful about the training was on our last day, it's called the Activation Day. So what we do is we write out our own plan, our own strategic action as to whatever God has revealed to us in this process, how will you then live it out? So there's things like some certain guiding statements like, the next 100 days, what are you going to do, right? And so we have to make up this plan, and then we have to present it in front of the rest of the group. And, you get a little bit nervous because the people that you're with are like, I can't believe the people I'm sitting with. These are like phenomenal world changers. And so anyways, you go up and you next 100 days. So, okay, this is my vision, my values. But one of the things that we had to talk about was our challenges. Because I don't know about you guys, we're so excited about the dreams and stepping out into the water, but we actually don't count the cost. And then we lose the race. We just lose the dream altogether. But one of the important things that we had to do is actually think about the challenges that I had and that I would face as I pursued this dream. And one of the challenges that came up for me was myself. A lot of times I find that the waves, yes, they're a challenge. The storm is a challenge. But I think more than the physical circumstances, it's my mental and it's my heart. It's myself. I'm the waves. I'm the storm. I find that I am sometimes my biggest hindrance to wherever God is calling me to be. You guys ever find that? And one of the things I said to them was, this is such a great plan, and I'm super excited about it. I really am. But I don't know if I'm capable of these things. Because when I compare myself to other people out there, I definitely fall short. And when I compare myself to the rest of the group this year, I definitely fall short. And I realize that the language I'm so accustomed to using is storm language, is minimizing language. It's language that minimizes me and my value and my worth and what God can actually do through me. Because I don't know if Peter believed that he can walk on water. Right? Do you think Peter believed that he can walk on water? We don't know. But do you think he believed that he could walk on water? But what was one thing he did believe? Jesus Jesus. He believed that if Jesus called him out, that was all that was needed. He didn't know that because he was not trained in walking on water. Do you understand? That was not seminary level 400 walk on water. And in fact, I don't even think the point of the story where Matthew, Luke, and they put it's not to say, hey, we can all physically walk on water. That's not the point. Let's not over-spiritualize the context. But the whole point is, how are the readers going to hear this when they read it? And it's really that wherever Jesus calls is the best place for you to be. When he calls, you go. You may not be ready to walk on water, but you go. And I'm finding in my activation plan, the plan looks great, but the key to that was me and how I thought. Some of you here, without a doubt, you guys are some of the most phenomenal people that I know. I think you're the only people I know. So I think, no, just joking. Wow, yeah. Well, let's just pray. Lord, did I talk about minimizing language? That was pretty minimizing. But you are some of the most phenomenal people that I know. Can I go back to that? Like, we don't believe you. Yeah, no trust. Rebuild the trust. Let me go back. And some of you, already I know, are going to be called into settings that you're unfamiliar with and uncomfortable with. But that's exactly where you need to be. That's exactly where you need to be. In Luke chapter 5, verse 1 to 11, we have the account where Jesus approaches some of the disciples and he says, come follow me. And they throw all their nets aside and they follow Jesus, right? And I call them the crazy fishermen. And that's probably what their village thought of them as. They're crazy. They literally abandoned their whole life because their nets represent their whole life, livelihood, everything. They threw it all away to follow Jesus. And we kind of over-glorify that story. Like, do it. If you're a lawyer, throw it all away and follow Jesus, right? And I don't think they forgot how to fish because remember when after they were going to go back to fish after Jesus disappeared? Remember, he's like, where is Jesus? He's not coming back. They're going back to what they knew what to do, right? But the point is this. They left to follow Jesus, not because he offered them a job, not because he offered them some kind of vocation or, you're going to have this on your resume, but it was just to follow Jesus. And then what did Jesus say? He says, you will be a fisher of men and women. Let's break down this whole vocational mess and strip it down to the very core. You are all called to fish men and women. Okay, let's just be real, okay? You can be a teacher, you can be a pastor, you can be a mom, dad, you can be a retail manager, you can be a lawyer, a doctor, a counselor, you can be a graphic artist, a tech guy, whatever it might be. Let's break it down to the very foundation. It's you are all called to be fishers of men and women, okay? That's just bare bones, okay? Bare bones. Now, whatever clothes you're going to put on that is really up to you. You see, the essence of who we are is the fact that God is calling us out, scattering us, but as he calls us out, he says, you are my beloved that I've chosen, and you're called to make fishers, you're going to be fishers of men and women, but the clothing, whatever you're going to put on, this could be, hey, I'm going to be a teacher. You're going to it's really hot, I'm not going to put it on, but, that's whatever clothing you put to it is, I think, really, God is giving us, like his will is like, here's 10 things, choose. You know what I mean? So where we get so hung up is we're like, we need the one. And we use words like sweet spot, and things like that, right? And I get that. But here's the thing. Sweet spot is just being in the will of God, and he's saying you have this. You have these items of clothing to wear. But understand that we are all called to be fishers of men and women. Why is this so important? Winston Churchill says this, to each, there comes in their lifetime a special moment when they are figuratively tapped on the shoulder and offered the chance to do a very special thing, unique to them and fitted to their talents. What a tragedy if that moment finds them unprepared or unqualified for that which could have been their finest hour. How many of you guys literally are figuratively feeling his touch on your shoulder? But because we feel like it has to be this one perfect thing, you brush that touch, that tap on your shoulder off. Man, I kind of want to break off into this like prophetic thing right now with people and highlight people. But do it. Maybe I'll do it after the service and just talk to somebody. But really, right? Like how many more conversations are you and I going to have about what should I do next? And how many more conversations are we going to have? Are you still so afraid of the ghost that you're just staying in the boat? Have you asked the ghost, come to, if that's you, call me? Have you? And I think that's such an important question. And I think you'll find that you'll surprise yourself. It really is Jesus. You'll say, okay, Jesus, then that's what I want. I want you. Have you guys ever felt those moments where God was tapping you on the shoulder, calling you out? Have you had those moments where you clearly know it's him? But the foolishness part comes in, right? Where everyone's like, no, get back in the boat. Dude, if you step out, I got to step out. If you step out, I look like a fool because I didn't step out. Right? That's, the disciples didn't step out. And because the rest of them didn't step out, they didn't experience what only Peter experienced, which was walking on water. But on top of that, not just a glorious walking on water, how about the failure part where he starts sinking? But in the sinking, it says in the Message paraphrase, immediately Jesus grabs him and picks him up. That experience to have Jesus picking you up as you fail, as you're walking, is incredible. But we don't have any opportunity for any of that interaction because we're still in the boat. The point that I move on to this is this. This is some real talk about walking on water. Let's stop over-spiritualizing the experience. You walk on water, yay, revival, organ plays, people are weeping, yeah, and then what? The world is still not changed. People are still in their boats, but they feel good and better about their boats. The reality is, here's a real talk about you walking on water, you going where Jesus is calling you to go. Expect problems. Let's pray, right? That's the reality. If you want a problem-less journey, I don't have an answer to that, actually. I was going to say something probably really not nice, but expect problems. That's the reality. And like I said, Peter knew that it's water he's stepping onto. I don't know if he thought he can walk on water, but what he did know was he said to Jesus, if that's you, command me to come. And he went, crap, what if he says come? And he went, oh, I'm going because he called. That kind of level of obedience and surrender is so beautiful. But let me tell you something. Not everyone is Peter, right? Not everyone is a Peter, emotional like roller coaster. You know, if he's going to cut someone's ear off, you don't know what's going to happen. But the reality was he just responded. And so many of us think the boat is safe, but I love this this lady named Eileen Gooder. She said this: you can live on bland food so as to avoid an ulcer, drink no tea. This is so good for our generation. Coffee or other stimulants in the name of health. Go to bed early, stay away from nightlife, avoid all controversial subjects so as never to give offense, mind your own business, avoid involvement in other people's problems, spend money only on necessities, and save all you can. You can still break your neck in the bathtub, though, and it'll serve you right, is what she says. That's not from me. Video, that's not my quote. This is from Eileen Gooder. But isn't that the truth? You try to play it safe, and you can still get hurt along the way. That's why I say what makes the boat so much safer. So expect problems because they're going to come. It's just part of the reality. Second is, look, you can't escape fear. You can't escape fear by running from it. But love, perfect love, will cast out fear. So choose to immerse yourself in the belovedness that God has called you to, your beloved identity, his love. Immerse yourself in that, and then you'll see certain levels of fear go away and be translated back into the fear of the Lord. I'd rather have the fear of the Lord than fear of man or fear of anything else. But immerse yourself in that. Pope John says, consult not your fears, but your hopes and your dreams. I love that. And my hopes and my dreams are in Jesus. Thirdly, this whole walking on water business, you are going to fail. You're going to fail a whole lot. And sometimes I tell people, fail real bad. But when you fail, fail forward. What a waste of failure if you fail backwards constantly. Fail forward. Peter began to sink, and I don't think Peter had shame at that time. Oh my gosh, what's everyone going to think of me? He's probably just thinking, I'm going to die. But Jesus pulls him up out of the water. What an awesome experience. The only one in that group to experience Jesus reaching down and rescue him from that act of sinking. You see, my question then is this: did Peter fail? Did he fail because he sank? For a lot of us who are Asian here, we say yes. Absolutely failed. And so he shouldn't have tried. But that's part of the reality. And I'm not knocking on Asians, but I can because I'm Asian. But here's the thing. We're so afraid to fail that we don't try. And therefore, you don't get to experience walking on water. You don't get to experience Jesus pulling you out of the water. So for me, that's not failure. That's not failure. When we become people who pursue whatever God is calling us to pursue, we become people who know how to manage our heart and our emotions and how we deal with successes and failures. We hold them all before God because we're his beloved. He loves us before we even do anything. And that's how we function. And what I'm realizing, and here, like I sound like an expert because I'm saying this, and I'm like, ha, 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 I've never, whatever. No. In fact, this talk speaks so loudly to me. I'm turning 41 this year. I feel like now it's time to play safe. Right? It's like, you know what? We did it. I'm good. And then, like, here's an example. I was talking to another guy on the airplane. He had 4 kids. He wore a St. Louis Blues sweater, and I was like, well, this is going to be an interesting airplane ride, because I'm a Canucks fan. We don't like the Blues. Right? So I was like, hey, you're a Blues fan, huh? And then we started talking, and then we fought a little bit. And then after that, we talked about the Sedins, and we both cried, actually, talking about them. It was just so emotional. Anyways, old news now. But we started talking, and why am I even talking about this? What did he say? Oh, we were talking about, because he used to play hockey, minor hockey in Vernon, junior hockey. And we were talking about all this stuff, and I said, dude, you know what's crazy? The older I get, I am so scared to go to drive anywhere near where people are. Like if I have the puck, I'll stay on the perimeter. If I'm playing basketball, I'm just shooting threes or half-court shots. Stupid half-court shots. But, like that's because I don't want contact, because once I get contact, it hurts my body like it's never hurt before. I'm afraid of injuring myself and getting hurt like I am. I get scared of being injured. Like we went snowboarding about a month ago, and I was like, at one point, I was like, wow, this is amazing. I haven't done it for 17 years, right? I went back, muscle memory, remember everything. I was like, yeah, look at this. And then you put your arms down because you just look cooler. I was like, yeah. And then I started picking up speed. And then I freaked it out. Boom, 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 boom. I was like, I hate snowboarding. I'll never do it again. I was just in my mind like, why? Why do we do this to ourselves? But part of me, it's funny, but part of me would rather choose that, or like the comfort level of just being safe. But once you're on the mountain and you're experiencing what it feels like to go be riding down a mountain, so it's exhilarating. You have one life to live. So I'd rather, okay, I'm not going to fall. I'll probably just slow down. It's called braking, I think. I forgot about braking. But I want to live that life And I'm not asking y'all to live home run lives. You know what I mean? We're like, yeah, like, and everyone goes, what a life they lived. But with integrity, because that's what the world pitches. Look what's out there, right? All the TED Talks, everything is all about you living your dreams. But they make these dreams so grandiose. But it could simply be just, hey, you want to get back into your fishing boat and go cross the sea? And what I love is that Jesus is calling us to be present in the now. There's no FOMO in this, right? Fear of missing out. And that's what the world pitches to you. And that's why we have high levels of fear and anxiety and stress. Because you're so afraid that you're going to miss out. But wherever Jesus is calling you, then you're not missing out. Amen? And this is where it needs to begin. It's not a ghost that's calling you, it's him. And for me, those are the most attractive people when they're so certain that they're meant to be home with their kids and watching their kids. You're like, that's so attractive. When you're like, you know what, I'm going to do this. And I'm going to work at Starbucks, and I'm absolutely fine with it. I'm like, that's so attractive that you're not chasing what everyone else is chasing. Because they're like, this is where Jesus is with me. For me, that's fantastic. That's beautiful. No FOMO here. And let me just end with this. My question for you is this. Excuse me. You've heard talks about this kind of stuff before. Have faith. No fear. Like, hey, Jesus. And we're like, oh. And then we're going to have the worship come up. And I get that. And we've done that a heck of a lot in our church, right? We have. Nothing wrong with it. It happens. But I just want to be very frank and real with you. Right now, so many of you guys are balancing this act of God's will, my will. God's ambitions for my life, my ambition. I think this balancing act could stop right now. If you just said, Jesus, if that's you, command me to come onto the water. This stressful game that you're living, where you're having a hard time sleeping, you can't focus and enjoy your work because you're always thinking about the better, the next. I think that can stop if you just said, Jesus, if that's you, command me. Because right now you look like a ghost. I really want you to be a ghost. But if that's you, call me out and I'll come. And then just ask him. Just make sure he only says it once to you. And then respond. And then let me tell you, you're going to watch the waves. Okay, let's stop being perfect Christians and think we're going to be Superman about this, right? You're going to see the waves. It's true. And then you're going to start sinking. You're going to feel ashamed that you're sinking. You're going to feel ashamed that you're not making enough money or making out like everyone else. You're going to feel all these things. But that's just part of the reality of coming out to where Jesus is calling you. It's going to happen. And as you pursue, this is called discipleship. This is exactly what it looks like. Isn't this beautiful? Failure, problems, struggle. But it's beautiful because this is what gives life texture. Who said the life of faith is supposed to be superhuman? What I love about Jesus, he's so beautifully human. As much as he is God, he is so wonderfully human. Right? Is it good? Kind of? Yeah? No? Just say yes. Just makes me feel better. I'm sinking. I need Jesus right now. Okay. Okay. Last question is this. Where are you in this story? When you hear this story of Peter and this, where are you in the story? Are you in the boat? Are you halfway out of the boat? Are you walking on the water? Are you sinking, reaching for Jesus? Or in fact, let me rephrase that, Jesus reaching for you. That's grace, right? It's not like, oh, no, I'm sinking. He's already reaching before you even know you're sinking. Where are you in this? Are you with Jesus on the water? Or are you one of the disciples who are quite comfortable in the boat, huddled, clinging? Like, where are you in this story? Where are you? This is a challenge. I think if you understand where you are, then you know which way you can go. Let's be real about ourselves. Don't say, hey, I'm with Jesus. Don't do that if you're not there, because you're not going to go anywhere. If you're really in that boat, hey, Jesus, I'm in that boat, because I think you're a ghost. So you and me gotta do a little talking. We gotta figure this thing out. If I really do consider you Lord or not, we gotta figure this out. Because right now, you're a ghost. If that's you, let's start there.